Welcome to the Cyber Rants Podcast, where we're all about sharing the forbidden secrets and slightly embellished truths about corporate cybersecurity programs. We're ranting, we're raving, and we're telling you the stuff that nobody talks about on their fancy website and trade show giveaways, all to protect you from cyber criminals. And now, here's your hosts, Mike Rotondo, Zach Fuller, and Lauro Chavez.
Hello and welcome to the Cyber Rants Podcast. This is your co-host, Zach Fuller, joined by two cybersecurity wizards, Mike Rotondo and Lauro Chavez. How are you guys doing today?
Oh, lightning bolts, man.
Yeah.
Lightning bolt.
Outstanding. It's a beautiful day, and we are talking about something a little different today. We're talking about individual cybersecurity, and also these same principles will apply for very small businesses. Now, we don't really work with individuals protecting themselves personally, or very small businesses that are a couple people in an office, that kind of thing. It's just that's not our focus as a business. But as a result of being in the cybersecurity industry, we get a lot of questions from friends, families, just connections on, hey, what can I do to protect myself? Or I'm a real estate agent, and there's a couple of us in a small office, and I want to make sure that we're putting some basic security measures in place. We don't have an IT department. We don't have anything formalized, anything like that. We're just looking for the basics. And so that's what today is about. It's going to be a good day. And before we do that, though, let's kick it off in our usual fashion with Anchorman Mike Rotondo.
Anchorman. Yeah, the arsonist had oddly shaped feet, and then all things other than that. I just had some ribs. Anyway, hey, there's a couple URLs that we're going to put into the podcast thing, both one from CISA and one from public.cyber.mil that talk about end user protection. So check that out on the page. Let's kick right over to headlines. The Mirai botnet exploiting Azure oh my god vulnerabilities. The flaws are identified in the Open Management Infrastructure, aka OMI. It is a widely used software component embedded in many popular Azure services. Attackers are searching for Azure Linux virtual boxes as we speak, as these are vulnerable to remote code execution flaw in Azure. These VMs are now confirmed as being actively scanned and exploited in an automated fashion by a botnet. So if you got Azure Linux boxes, make sure they're locked down. Take a look at this. Microsoft investigates Outlook issues with security keys and search issues. Microsoft is investigating several issues impacting Outlook customers and leading to problems related to security keys, search results, and more. Some users cannot add Gmail accounts if they use security keys for multi-factor authentication. Microsoft is also looking for a fix to address reports of search results for Outlook, suggested searches being inaccurate, incomplete, or missing. Microsoft, what can you say? A new bug in Microsoft Windows could let hackers easily install rootkit. That's awesome. This is a motherboard level flaw that security researchers have disclosed an unpatched weakness in Microsoft Windows platform binary table, affecting all Windows-based devices since Windows 8 that could be potentially exploited to install a rootkit and compromise the integrity of the devices. These flaws make every Windows system vulnerable to easily crafted attacks that install fraudulent vendor-specific tables. So you don't even need a rubber ducky to break into this one. Definitely check that one out. I'm going to turn to government real quick for just some real quick headlines. Biden's warning, hackers define critical as they see fit. The Biden administration plans to target exchanges supporting ransomware operations with sanctions. And then finally, the U.S. actually does sanction a cryptocurrency exchange called Suex for aiding ransomware gangs. It's a Russian-based cryptocurrency exchange that helps facilitate and launder transactions from at least 8 ransomware variants. There's some other good headlines out there. There's actually a list that's been compiled by researchers of the vulnerabilities abused most by ransomware gangs. Check that one out. VMware, if you haven't heard already, had a big bug issue this week. TeamViewer is using fake expired certificates, so there's a fake website doing that. There's another Microsoft issue with Autodiscover. There's a Mac OS 0-day, and there's Google Android issues. So check out the news page. And with that, Lauro, how about some exploits?
Awesome, man. Well, that's a lot of Microsoft stuff. And
well, they aim to please somebody.
Well, I actually have a Microsoft Windows exploit to talk about, and the reason that again the reason these are important is that these are payload exploit. This is code that I can put into my Metasploit framework or my Metasploit Pro, and I can point it at your target, and if it's matches the system status and version, I'm going to win. So that's why these exploits are important. So let's talk about the Microsoft. This is interesting. Okay, so for those who don't know, the cmd.exe is embedded in all Microsoft products, right? This is their command line tool, right? So if you're connecting to shares, or you're looking at IP tables, or you're trying to configure or see the IP address, you're using command.exe. Okay, there's a stack buffer overflow for this, done by John Page, aka Hyperlinks. And I'm going to give him credit for this because unlike a lot of individuals who write code for said exploits, they don't publish their findings properly, and this individual Hyperlinks actually put a video on YouTube showing the exploit work. So I have a lot of appreciation for those individuals that will do that POC in video. And it's a cool Python script that you have to execute, but it will absolutely break Windows. cmd.exe, it's a pretty cool exploit. So I'm not sure what the patch is going to be for this. It does require a local access, so don't be afraid that nobody can pull this off. This is going to be something that one of your users may be able to do, utilizing cmd.exe in this like kind of a arbitrary method with Stack Overflows and in this payload for Python. So not something easily pull offable, but it's out there. And for the rest of my exploits, I'm going to go back to Old Faithful, old Dirty Hole, old Dirty Sock, old WordPress.
Don't do it.
WordPress. Well, honestly, you know what? Here's the thing: is that if you were walking around outside and there were landmines, you'd want me to tell you. Okay, so if you're using WordPress, if you're that brave and that cheap that you have to use the open source software to front your web capabilities, that's fine. I'm not hating on you. Just be careful. You gotta wear 2 or 3. You know what I mean? Protective devices when you're dealing with WordPress. Okay, so if you're using fitness calculators 1.9, there's a request forgery for cross-site scripting and that sort of thing with that. If you're using any of the WooCommerce, okay, WooCommerce has several plugins. They've got everything from command injection to reflected cross-site scripting as part of that WooCommerce 3.1 e-commerce kind of site capability. So if you're using any of the WooCommerce, check it, upgrade it beyond 3, or at least put some sort of a web application firewall in front of your stuff. If you're using any of the 3D Print Lite, there is arbitrary file upload for that. So if you've got 3D Print Lite as a WordPress plugin, somebody's going to be able to upload a file with an executable in it. So please make sure you got that resolved if you're using 3D Print Lite. And if you're using, last one here, if you're using the media library version of WordPress 5.7, there's an XML external entity injection. You have to be authenticated for this, thank goodness, but someone can do a double XE over WordPress 5.7 if you're using that media library. So check that stuff out. Again, if you're going to play with fire, wear gloves and keep fire extinguishers close. Goggles, safety equipment. WordPress is on fire. Zach, what are we talking about today?
Well,
something fun, something exciting.
We're going to keep it simple. This episode is for those individuals that really don't have any background in security. They're users of technology, of course, and reliant on it, but just don't have a background in this stuff. So we're going to keep it simple. We are going to talk about, I'm going to say, the top 5 things that you should do as an individual. Now, this list is highly debatable, and we understand there's going to be people say, oh no, you should do this instead, or wasn't the right order. Reality is, doing something is better than doing nothing, right? So we're going to talk about that, but before we do, we're going to take a quick commercial break.
Want even more Cyber Rants? Be sure to subscribe to the Cyber Rants podcast. Get your copy of our best-selling book, Cyber Rants, on Amazon today. This podcast is brought to you by Silent Sector, the firm dedicated to building world-class cybersecurity programs for mid-market and emerging companies across the U.S. Silent Sector also provides industry-leading penetration tests and cyber risk assessments. Visit silentsector.com and contact us today.
And we're back. If we were to go through the top 5, and maybe we'll have time for more, but let's just see if we can get through 5 basic things that people should be doing as individuals to protect themselves or their very small businesses, individual consultants, people like that. And I'm going to start by throwing out the first one, which to me, the first thing that people need to be is really aware of what's going on out there, right? If people aren't aware, if they don't take it seriously, they are going to become victims of cybercrime. And unfortunately, you hear about this all the time, that people that are getting they're the grandma that gets ransomware on her Windows 95 PC, right? It's prevalent out there. It happens all the time, and then they have to pay $320 worth of Bitcoin or something like that to get their stuff back. But a lot of times, these individuals have things like their personal financial records. They have digitized information that they need to have access to, financial stuff, insurance, wills, legal documents, things like that. And a lot of times people are guilty of not having good backups, just like companies are, right? So I think awareness is the first thing. And this one, to me, this is critical, because we had one of our team members asked just the other day about her mom got hit, and through a phishing email, right? So she was asking what to do about it. And I actually found out that this is not a product plug or anything, but if they want to throw us some cash, I'm not going to turn it away. But the KnowBe4, which is a very well-known security awareness training platform, actually has a individual account that people can buy for their home and family account for $30, and they can get on there and they can do some security awareness training to understand how to recognize phishing emails, how to recognize malicious activity, right? And how to respond to it. And so I thought that was really cool that KnowBe4 does that. I'm sure there's a lot of other great resources out there, but first thing you can do is be aware, take some time to educate yourself on different types of cyber attacks and how a little bit, just, you don't have to be an expert, but how social engineering occurs, phishing emails, how to protect yourself from malware, that sort of thing. What are your thoughts? Any comments or ideas that people can do as individuals as far as just awareness goes, or should we move on?
No, I think this is a good thing to start on. And, I think you say this a lot, Zach, that imperfect action is always better than perfect inaction, right? So the doing something, right, it means, is always better than just kind of being stale. My dad recently, so what I want to talk about, ransomware and malware get hit a lot, okay, but that is kind of an after effect of what I like to refer to as clickbait. And my dad fell victim recently. He called me before he was, putting in credit card information, that sort of thing. But, there are pitfalls out there just laden for everybody who's really, just a basic user out there. Okay, you got your kind of your tech crowd. We're going to cut them aside, but all your basic users, your aunts, uncles, family members, everybody who's just on there buying Amazon, doing Facebook, the social thing, just the very basics of the internet, there are just tons of pitfalls in the form of clickbait waiting for you. So what got my dad is he was looking for plane tickets. He was trying to get cheap plane tickets to come out here and see the little girl for her birthday. So, he fell victim on a clickbait piece for cheap tickets. So I think that's why this education is important, is that you at least become somewhat aware of, the same reason we go take CCW classes and all that kind of stuff, right? It gives you that awareness of not just the law, but how criminals act in these types of activities, what you can expect to see in the landscape as you kind of do your normal activities on the net, check your bank accounts, go to Amazon, do your social stuff, that sort of thing, right? Where those pitfalls may be for you. And I think that, like you said, Zach, that's probably number one. I'll throw in an extra. I know you threw out the KnowBe4 thing, which their quality is up there with Amazon Prime and Netflix, and I mean it's unbelievable. Okay, so everybody out there, the $30 you spend is absolutely worth it. The production value that goes into these videos is in the millions of dollars. They spare no expense, so it's very entertaining. It's good stuff. for everybody who doesn't want to do the $30, the one I'll toss out there is the public.cyber.mil. They have a security awareness training for everybody. Okay, you got to enroll in it. It's almost an hour. Okay, so it's an online training, like computer-based training, CBT, whatever you want to call it, LMS. You're going to log in. You're going to go through this training, but it's going to weaponize you with information. And like Zach said, I think this is probably the most important thing. Mike, how do you feel?
First thing is, from an awareness perspective, we hear this from businesses all the time. I don't have anything anybody wants to steal. Be aware that somebody wants to steal something from you. It doesn't matter whether it's compute power, your bank account number, your whatever. Someone out there is lurking around and they're going to try and exploit what you want. You don't think like them, so you don't know what they're looking for necessarily. So yeah, I mean, Laurel, you and Zach have covered this pretty thoroughly. So I'm just adding on, but this is just an additional piece of caution is that regardless of whether you think you have something they want, you don't know what they want. So you need to protect yourself. That's my 2 cents on awareness. There is a CISA link that is part of the headlines I mentioned at the beginning that does talk about it. So the federal government puts together this list. It's Computer Information Security Association or something like that, administration. Anyway, it does talk about securing your private home and your small business, and it gives a lot of very good recommendations in there.
Oh, cool. Yeah, good one.
Well, I have a list of 5 recommendations that I give people, but I don't want to just go off that. Does anybody have something that they would qualify as second in the list of important things people should be doing?
Man, you sent around that list and it just stifled my creative muse, so I didn't even think about it anymore. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Well, then I'm just going to throw it out
Secrets.
there. Passwords.
Yeah, secrets.
Key for passwords, because so many people are guilty of using the same password over and over, and it's their dog's name and the year or whatever. And people think, well, this is creative, but they don't understand that cyber criminals can use like dictionary attacks and rainbow tables that are basically, you have massive lists of username or passwords and different common combinations of words and dates and things like that. Millions and millions and millions of these passwords can be in lists that can be pushed through systems very, very quickly that aren't built to defend against that type of an attack, right? So it's not about being creative, because chances are, if you're just coming up with stuff off the top of your head, probably not all that great. So passwords need to be difficult. I mean, there's a lot we could talk about here. They need to be long, and you should never use the same password over and over.
No, you should just point. I mean, I think we should just talk about password managers, right? Because there's a lot of free ones out there that you can get. And what a password manager is for everybody out there listening that may not understand this concept is that what you have is you have one password you need to remember now. Okay. And so this program that you install on your computer, and some of them are in the cloud, but they'll ask you for one main password to open the application. And so that becomes the only password you need to remember at this point. So now that password obviously needs to be very, very good. And like Zach said, very strong and not be something very simple, because it's going to be the master key to all of your other secrets or passwords to other things like your bank account, Amazon, those sorts of things. So inside of these password applications, they're going to give you the capability to randomly generate passwords for other authentication items that you may have, Amazon, Instagram, Facebook, doesn't matter. Right. And so what you can do now is you can create these passwords, and you can have the application randomly generate you a random string password that can be as long as you request. So you could make it 24 or 36 characters long, and all you need to do is copy and paste it into the browser at that point now. So this gives you the ability of not having to memorize a bunch of passwords. You just say, Zach, you use one of these. I think I use one of these. I know Mike probably used one of these. I'll throw out LastPass. I think Mike, what are you using, Mike?
I'm not telling what I use, but but yeah, there's a bunch of great ones out there. What a
Yeah.
PassPack, LastPass, Avast, 1Password. Who else? I mean, all you have to do is Google password managers and look at one that fits your budget. You know, they're usually pretty cheap. I mean, the most of them that I've seen are about $30 to $50 a year, but it saves tremendous. And I think there's probably some free ones. I hesitate with, and they may be okay, but I hesitate using free stuff like that.
Well, you don't know who makes the free stuff necessarily. I mean, sometimes, I mean, if it's a free product from a large company, that's one thing. If it's a free open source piece of software you find, you don't know who's writing that. I mean,
Yeah,
there's-
we just talked about WordPress.
yeah.
Use the WordPress password manager. It's excellent.
It's excellent.
No, but there are a lot of them out there, and use them. I mean, it makes life so much easier, and most of them too whether you're on your phone or a tablet or on your computer, most of them will autofill the pre-saved passwords for you. You don't have to come up with passwords. It auto generates them. It saves them along with your username, along with the URLs where they work. Right. So you can even use a password manager where you just use it almost as like your bookmarks. Right. So if you have to go to, maybe something that you don't go to very often, maybe an insurance, company login or something like that for your insurance plan, you can basically just type that into your password manager and it'll pull up your browser, pull up that website, autofill the username and password. And it works really well. So I don't even know my passwords for pretty much anything, really. Other than a very long, difficult master password for password manager. So
make sure you've got a backup plan for that, right? Because if someone smashes your laptop, like a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, or spills coffee on it or something, having a backup of that, if it has a cloud-based backup or something, that most of them have that, don't they, Zach?
Yeah,
or you can offline them to a drive.
Yeah, because most people are switching between their phone and tablet and computer and all that. So yeah, the stuff that I use, it's cloud based, and I can open it from any device that I have it on. But
so that's something to think about, right? When you're looking at solutions for this, a more inexpensive installable may look like a good idea. But if you're not doing the offline backups with it and your computer crashes, you're going to lose all your passwords. So maybe paying a little bit for something that has some form of a cloud backup and gives you usability between devices. I think that would probably be something to spin for, right? So certainly look into that.
Find something that you see out there a lot that's a big, brand name. Don't go too budget.
WordPress password manager.
One key thing, and when if you're creating a password and you don't want to use password manager and you want to create your own password, the new thought out there is to use a phrase instead of a word. Big brown dog would be a phrase that you would use, and then you would add number, symbols, lowercase, uppercase, that sort of thing would be what you would want to do, because it's easy to remember, right? You can remember big brown dog and then figure out where you put your, zeros instead of O's and exclamation points instead of ones, and that kind of thing. So,
and use at least 12 characters minimum,
preferably 15.
Yeah,
because of old NTLM.
Everybody's out there like cringing, like, no, I gotta remember a longer password, unfortunately. But it's like you want a good key set for the external door of your house. You don't want to use a chintzy, you want to use a metal frame and all that, right?
Let's move on from password, just in interest of time here. I think we've beat that one down pretty well. What about some things that you can do to protect your devices?
3 and 4 probably kind of dovetail on one another. I'll say, you need some form of endpoint protection on your systems at home, and you're going to need those systems up to date, right?
And in layman's
we can say 3 and 4.
Endpoint protection being antivirus software, primarily.
Yeah, primarily, right? Yeah, they're adding, for the endpoint protection validation, they're adding more capabilities than just antivirus now. So they're calling them total endpoint protection and EPP and all this kind of thing now. So, but yes, you need some form of anti-ransomware, anti-malware, antivirus software to help protect you as you kind of, live your cyber life. And then you need to keep whatever system you have up to date. So I think we could probably take up 3 and 4, right? So if 1 was awareness, you got to be aware. 2 was passwords. We kick that dead horse a lot. 3, I guess, is antivirus, right? And then 4 would be keeping your systems up to date.
Right. And antivirus, kind of the same thing goes as a password manager. So there's a lot of platforms out there that are really good, and then you can get annual subscriptions as an individual or a very small business that goes. So for example, if you look at a platform like Avast, or McAfee or Norton, they all have this, but basically you can get a subscription where you get the antivirus and a more holistic endpoint protection. But in layman's terms, the antivirus software on your computer and on your cell phone and tablets. And yes, you should be running that stuff on your cell phones and tablets as well. They are exploitable, just like a computer.
Phones are even more exploitable than computers are. There's less protection on phones.
Yeah, well, everybody has it on her, right? So again, cyber criminals are going to go, they're going to hunt where all the game is. So everybody is on their phones, carrying their phones mostly all the time. So it makes for a lavish playground for cyber criminals.
Yeah, in all honesty, if your phone isn't patched and it's not like up to date, close, don't do your banking on it. Don't do your Amazon shopping. Don't do those things. It's dangerous. It just is. If you're 3 revisions behind in a unsupported phone and you're using an old OS, you're just setting yourself up for dangerous problems.
Yeah, good point, Mike. And just to kind of give everybody an idea, right? The way that some of these cyber criminals work is that they'll take older versions that, like the example Apple, recently updated. They can take the previous version and see what bugs they fixed, and what actual, kind of malicious things that could be done with the fixes, and then they'll write exploits for that. So because they bet on everybody not updating their computers, they bet on people not doing that, and they're winning, right? I mean, it's actually they're coming out ahead because of so many individuals not wanting to keep their systems up to date, or just not being aware that they need to keep their systems up to date. Right. Or believing that they've got auto update on, and that's going to be good enough for some of this, and it might be in some cases, but
that's a good point. If casinos were the people out there and gamblers were the bettors at the casino, they'd be just cleaning house. The cyber criminals, if they were the gamblers, they would just wipe out the casinos. I'd take that bet any day. That probably I'd be interested. I don't know what the statistics are, but let's just take the U.S. alone. I would bet that probably greater than 70% of the population runs, even with new devices and stuff, they probably have dated operating systems that they're running on those devices, phones, tablets, computers. They probably aren't keeping current. It's like that pop-up comes up that says a new version is available, and they're busy. No, we'll wait. We'll do it another time, and just delay, cancel.
Yeah, that remind me tomorrow just ends up, being years out.
Yeah, but it's working right now. Why do I need an update?
Exactly. Well, as an example, okay, so let's real quick talk about the update that Apple did to resolve the zero-click, zero-day vulnerability that they had with the way that iMessage handles an inbound image. Okay, so somebody could send you an image that actually had code in it to install, in this case, the Pegasus rootware software. They could send you an image to your phone. You didn't even have to have your phone on you. It just had to be on, and iMessage needed to be turned on. And the phone would receive the iMessage. It would assemble the code. It would download the installable, and your phone would be now owned by the individual that sent you that particular image. So updating your software was critical in this case, right? So having the new version of OS X on your Apple devices would completely remedy this problem of somebody being able to send you an iMessage and install something on your computer without you doing anything at all. It's pretty serious. So that is one, and I guarantee you there are a lot of people out there right now still running .4 on Mac OS that's vulnerable to this attack. And so that's one case where we have a 0-day attack that's very scary, been used in the wild, and you can resolve it by just simply updating your Mac OS. And this happens, well, with Windows obviously more frequently. Maybe that's why people aren't maybe updating Windows, is because if I had to do it 3 times a week, maybe I'd get tired of it too.
Yeah, apparently it's been in the news for at least the last few episodes, Windows exploits, but anyway, I won't go there. Well, let's talk about number 5 here, and then maybe we can throw in a few bonus tips. But number 5, backups.
Yep.
And this is another thing that people don't do.
No, they certainly don't. I've had to help several family members that have had computer crashes, not from malware or just from old computers. You know, I mean, it will eventually get enough dust or cigarette smoke in it to stop working. smoking 6 packs a day right next to the computer.
Cat hair. You got
dog hair.
Chips and French fry grease.
Yeah, that stuff's all bad for electronics, right? Water, you know. Anyway, so backups I think are super important. And I know that there's a lot of individuals that are using Microsoft OneDrive for 365, and there's a lot of people on iCloud and all this stuff. My personal favorite is an offline USB drive. Okay, an encrypted offline USB. If you want to be very thorough, have 3 of them, and you can make yourself a poor man's SQL mirror. And what you do is you keep data on one, and then every week you copy the data to the other 2, and you keep them physically separated. That way, in case something happens to a computer, something happens to the house that you're in, God forbid, the vehicle that you're traveling in, you get in an accident, you can rebuild your work within a short amount of time. I'm a big believer of, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. So the data in the cloud is great, but if that capability gets turned off by any reason, lack of internet, right? Lack of service, like iCloud's fantastic until you don't have internet service. Then how do you get stuff downloaded and backed up to the cloud, right? You have to wait. So these in times where you don't have all of the service components working, to make this a really nice solution to have that cloud backup. Offline backup is my go-to, and USB drives are cheap. And let me tell you, I want to try to see somebody use 128 gigs for the stuff that they need. Pictures, right? I mean, that's a lot of space, and you're talking like under $25 for one of these USB drives. What do you guys think? Is that crazy? Is that excessive?
No, I agree. I mean, for us, for its variety of cloud-based, but also physical, right? I do like to have that physical access. So I just have a USB, not a thumb drive, but a disk drive it's a solid state, and I just basically back up and unplug, disconnect, put it away. It really is that simple. I mean, it's just a matter of making it a habit of doing that, I think. So
and go ahead, Mike. Sorry, brother.
I rotate 2 drives personally, and I use the backup software for both of them, and then I also have created a partition where I then manually back up critical. So I've got a double backup on each drive, and I do one at the bottom half of the month and one at the top half of the month, or middle of the month. I'm always 2 weeks out at most. So
no, that's super smart, right? And even working full time off a USB isn't a bad thing, because if someone spills coffee on the computer, the USB drive is probably going to be fine. You can yank it out. Once it loses power, it's going to kill its connectivity to the operating system, and you can just pull it out. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of benefits to that, but like you said, Zach, you just can't remember to do it, sort of thing, right? Get in the mindset of not trusting all of your data on the device that you're using all the day, because they go out, they have problems. I had swollen batteries in every one of my MacBook Pro laptops, right? You guys remember that?
Yeah, it was like a disease going around through your battery.
Yeah, I thought that, I was like, does this one got it now because it was too close to the other one? I couldn't believe like three MacBook Pros all in the same room, all within distance of each other, all had swollen batteries. I was like, you guys are all sick. Oh, no.
I'm pretty sure you use those computers harder than the average user. So they were probably never meant to go through the abuse that you put in there.
Well, if this is any idea to how much I needed the one computer, the other two went back to Apple, and the one I turned it off. I ripped the battery packs out, disconnected the drive controller to the motherboard, and then cut the battery packs out, threw them away, put the bottom back on, and I have a desktop now.
But, plug in only.
Yeah. When Apple says, well, we'll need that for a month.
No thanks. Well, so backups, there's a lot of ways you can do it. I think there are a lot of cloud-based backup systems that you can pay, again, like an annual or a small monthly fee, and they just back up your computer. But I don't trust any single cloud environment as well, but I also don't 100% trust just, a drive in a single safe, right? So I think the moral behind the story here is redundancy and multiple backup systems, and that's going to help keep you protected. So you just never know what's going to happen. But
just remember, cloud is just somebody else's computer.
That's right.
And they are targets. And part of my backup philosophy, just real quick, I know we're trying to wrap up here, is that I worked for a very large bank, and they didn't store anything in a distributed cloud or anything else. Every piece of data was under their control 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. And I kept thinking to myself, well, if this is what the bank does, then that's probably what I should do with my data. And since then, everything is backed up local, stored here, drives stay in the safe, and that's just the way it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I'll throw in a too long didn't listen instead of a too long didn't read, but too long didn't listen. Be aware, get some awareness training.
Yeah.
Find yourself a password manager, number 2, something, or use strong passwords. But if you can download and install a password manager to do all the hard thinking for you, you'll be so far ahead of the game. Number 3, find some antivirus and ransomware that fits your budget. Sophos Home, McAfee Total Protection, something, right? You can even go to Office Max still if you are in that mindset, and go buy you a box with a physical disk in it still, or at least a code to download, right? Number 4, keep your systems up to date. Doesn't matter what you're using, pads, phones, Androids, Windows, they're all need to be updated. Updates are coming out weekly, sometimes twice a week. Keep them updated, and then make sure you have some form of a backup solution. Number 5. That was my too long didn't listen.
That was excellent. Thank you for that. And I'm going to throw in just a couple additional tips real quick, and we will wrap up. But use 2-factor or multi-factor authentication whenever you can. Most people recognize this as getting a text message to their cell phone when they sign in. If possible, if the software you're using, the software as a service solution has it, use a authenticator application. We won't go into this in detail, but use an authenticator application instead of getting a text message. It's going to be a more secure way to do it. And then, implement lock screens on your devices, right? So if you set your phone down, make sure it locks in a minute or so, right? If you're not using it, make sure you have passwords and lock screens on that. And then also make sure you're, making phone calls to verify anything that looks suspicious, right? If your bank says, hey, we're going to send you an email to reset your password, right? Before you do that, just go either direct to the website for your bank. Don't click on the links, or if you have some financial request or something, make a phone call to a known party. Nothing in the email. There's just a couple bonus tips there. There's a lot more we could talk about, of course, but I think that's a good start for most people. So any final comments, thoughts, ideas, words of wisdom?
Don't answer phone calls from strange numbers. Anybody who loves you or cares about you is going to leave a message. You can call them back.
I say don't answer phone calls, period.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, can you even really answer a phone call now? It's pretty terrible, because we come from an age where we used to call each other all the time. And now it's like the most untrusted thing ever.
Microsoft will not call you to tell you there's a problem with your computer. Neither will Apple. And that's been a scam that's been happening for a while. They'll call certain people and say, hey, we noticed you have a problem with your computer. That's a scam. That's
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Well, thank you everybody for listening today. Hope this helps all of you that are individuals concerned about your cyber protection or very small businesses. These principles still apply. Do them, make it happen. Take a little bit of extra time to put these things in place if you don't have them already, and it will save you potentially hundreds or thousands of hours in the future. So thank you very much for listening. If you like the Cyber Rants podcast, make sure you subscribe. And at cyberrantspodcast.com, you can see all the podcast episodes. There's also a form there that you can enter your comments, questions, thoughts, all that, so we can address them on future episodes. Thanks a lot and have a great day.
Pick up your copy of the Cyber Rants book on Amazon today. And if you're looking to take your cybersecurity program to the next level, visit us online at www.silentsector.com. Join us next time for another edition of the Cyber Rants podcast.